photo taste is the Pinterest because they are the best.
Hello and welcome to 6 Minute English. I'm Rob.
And I'm Neil. Hello.
Hello, Neil. Today we're talking about voting. Now, I'm sure it's something you've done, Neil.
Of course. And earlier this year we had a general election in the UK where I voted, and I'd feel guilty if I didn't exercise my right to vote. Now, a right in this case means somebody's legal claim to vote.
In a general election, we vote for a government that runs the whole country, but we also have local and European elections too sometimes.
Yes, but voting in the UK is optional, so you don't have to do it, whereas in some countries voting is compulsory, and compulsory means something that you have to do.
So, if you were in Australia, where the government passed a law that made voting compulsory, you would have to pay a fine of $20 for not voting.
And that's because the Australian government believes that voting is a duty and not just a right.
And duty means something you have a responsibility to do.
And it's your duty, Rob, to ask me today's quiz question.
Yes, sir. OK, so can you tell me, what is a constituency? Is it A, the people who live in and vote in a particular area? B, the politicians who make and change the laws of a country? Or C, a town or district that has its own government?
Well, I'm no expert on politics, but I'm going to go for C. That's a town or district that has its own government.
OK, well, we'll find out later on in the show whether you're right or wrong. Now it's time to hear what a truly young person has to say about compulsory voting.
Oh, right. Unlike me, you mean? Mm-hmm. Well, here's Michael Yip, who is a student at Warwick University, and therefore much younger than me.
A lot of the people that I speak to just say, I don't care, or I don't really know what's going on. And in this way, another reason why I'm quite cautious about this is because it could sort of engender this sort of slapdash attitude towards politics where, it's sort of seen as, being conscripted for national service in a way, you just want to get it over and done with.
So Michael says he is cautious about the idea of introducing compulsory voting. So why is that, Neil?
He thinks forcing young people to vote will engender or give rise to a slapdash attitude. Now, what does slapdash mean, Rob?
It's a good word, isn't it? But it means doing something quickly and carelessly.
Oh, you'd never do that, would you, Rob? Now, Michael compares compulsory voting to national service. National service is compulsory government service that usually means military service and is also known as conscription.
So when it's something you haven't chosen to do, or which you actively don't want to do, it's a case of getting it over and done with.
And that means finishing something difficult or unpleasant as quickly as possible.
Young people might just pick a political party out of a hat, which means to choose randomly, rather than making an informed choice.
So, some people think that politicians need to improve political education. Now let's listen to broadcaster and writer Rick Edwards talking about this.
If you said to politicians, right, 3.3 million first-time voters are definitely going to vote, then they will have to speak to them, and they will have to make an effort to go to where they are. And I think that's the change that it would create.
So, compulsory voting would mean a responsibility for the politicians too.
That's right. They need to and educate young people. Engage and educate young people. Otherwise, reluctant voters may deliberately spoil or waste their votes.
The government could also include a none of the above option on the ballot paper.
Can you explain a bit more about that, Rob?
Well, it means you tick this option if you don't want to vote for any of the listed political parties.
An interesting idea. Well, my option for now is to get the answer to the quiz question.
OK, well, I asked, what is a constituency? Is it A, the people who live in and vote in a particular area? B, the politicians who make and change the laws of a country? Or C, a town or district that has its own government?
And I said C, a town or district that has its own government.
Well, you ticked the wrong box, Neil. The answer is A, the people who live in and vote in a particular area. Now, did you know the UK is currently divided into 650 areas called parliamentary constituencies, each of which is represented by one MP in the House of Commons, and each constituency can have a different area. The largest is Ross, Skye and Lochaber in Scotland, measuring approximately 12,000 square kilometres. The smallest constituency is Islington North in London, measuring a little over 7 square kilometres. Now, can we hear today's words again, please, Neil?
Okay, we heard. Right. General election. Compulsory. Duty. Engender. Slapdash. National service. Conscription. Over and done with. Pick a political party out of a hat. Spoil.
Splendid. Well, that's the end of today's 6-Minute English. I hope it got your vote. You can hear more programmes at bbclearningenglish.com. Please join us again soon. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
6 minutes English.
My photo taste is the Pinterest, because they are the best. Flick to link, a link to flick.
Along the ancient path of the Monongahela River, Braddock, Pennsylvania sits in the eastern region of Allegheny County, approximately 9 miles outside of Pittsburgh. An industrial suburb, Braddock is home to Andrew Carnegie's first steel mill, the Ecker Thompson Works. Operating since 1875, it is the last functioning steel mill in the region. For 12 years, I have produced collaborative portraits, still life, landscapes, and aerial views in order to build a visual archive to address the intersection of the steel industry, the environment, and the healthcare system's impact on the bodies of my family and community. The tradition and grand narrative of Braddock is mostly comprised of stories of industrialists and trade unions. Currently, the new narrative about Braddock, a poster child for Rust Belt revitalization, is a story of urban pioneers discovering a new frontier. Mass media has omitted the fact that Braddock is predominantly black. Our existence has been co-opted, silenced, and erased. Fourth generation, in a lineage of women, I was raised under the protection and care of Grandma Ruby off 8th Street at 805 Washington Avenue. She worked as a manager for Goodwill. Mom was a nurse's aide. She watched the steel mills close and white flight to suburban developments. By the time my generation walked the streets, disinvestment at the local, state, and federal level eroded infrastructure, and the war on drugs dismantled my family and community. Grandma Ruby's stepfather, Gramps, was one of few black men to retire from Carnegie's mill with his pension. He worked in high temperatures, tearing down and rebuilding furnaces, cleaning up spilt metal and slag. The history of a place is written on the body and the landscape. Areas of heavy truck traffic, exposure to benzene and atomized metals risk cancer and lupus. 123 licensed beds, 652 employees, rehabilitation programs decimated. A housing discrimination lawsuit against Allegheny County removed where the project's Talbot Towers once stood. Recent rezoning for more light industry has since appeared. Google Maps and Google Earth pixelations conceal the flammable waste being used to squeeze the Bunn family off their home and land. In 2013, I chartered a helicopter with my cameras to document this aggressive dispossession. In flight, my observation reveals thousands of plastic white bundles owned by a conservation industry that claims it's eco-friendly and recycles millions of tires to preserve people's lives and to improve people's lives. My work spirals from the micro to the macro level, excavating hidden histories. Recently, at the Seattle Art Museum, Isaac Bunn and I mounted this exhibition, and the exhibition was used as a platform to launch his voice. Through reclamation of our narrative, we will continue to fight historic erasure and socioeconomic inequality. Thank you.
The first time I uttered a prayer was in a glass-stained cathedral. I was kneeling long after the congregation was on its feet, dipped both hands into holy water, traced the Trinity across my chest, my tiny body drooping like a question mark all over the wooden pew. I asked Jesus to fix me. And when he did not answer, I befriended silence in the hopes that my sin would burn and salt my mouth would dissolve like sugar on tongue. But shame lingered as an aftertaste, and in an attempt to reintroduce me to sanctity, my mother told me of the miracle I was. Said I could grow up to be anything I want. I decided to be a boy. It was cute. I had snapped back, toothless grin, used skin knees as street cred, played hide and seek with what was left of my goal. I was it, the winner to a game the other kids couldn't play. I was the mystery of an anatomy, a question asked but not answered, tight roping between awkward boy and apologetic girl. And when I turned 12, the boy phase wasn't deemed cute anymore. It was met with nostalgic aunts who missed seeing my knees in the shadow of skirts, who reminded me that my kind of attitude would never bring a husband home, that I exist for heterosexual marriage and childbearing, and I swallowed their insults along with their slurs. Naturally, I did not come out of the closet. The kids at my school opened it without my permission, called me by a name I did not recognize, said lesbian, but I was more boy than girl, more Ken than Bobby. It had nothing to do with hating my body. I just love it enough to let it go. I treat it like a house, and when your house is falling apart, you do not evacuate. You make it comfortable enough to house all your insides. You make it pretty enough to invite guests over. You make the floorboards strong enough to stand on.
Flick to link, a link to flick. My photo taste is the Pinterest because they are the best.
Hello and welcome to 6 Minute English.